Welcome, everybody. This is our part three of our Heritage and Culture webinar series, and this one is entitled A Better Braai Day with Dr. Avron Urison. Welcome, Dr. Urison. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
What?
Caitlin. Lovely to be here.
We're sorry to hear that you're going to be load shed.
Yes, yes. I think a lot of us are at this time of evening. But what better way than to listen to some interesting and useful information?
Exactly, and we're hoping that everybody will appreciate this particularly interesting and useful information because it is about the topic what we can do to make a Braai Day better. And having just come off the back of our Heritage Day weekend, we are having to be cognizant of what it is that we choose to indulge in when we have those wonderful braais. So
Mm.
having just had that Heritage Day weekend, we know that we, as South Africans, we do love a braai and a beer. And do we need to be careful with how much of those things that we have?
Well, I think the first thing to remember, and this is a general principle of health and wellness, it's all about moderation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we can enjoy ourselves, and we should enjoy ourselves, and we shouldn't limit our enjoyment of having bras, which we love as a country and love as South Africans.
Mm.
The key issue is to do it in moderation, right? And we know that the average South African, when you see it out there, probably doesn't do it in moderation. So, in other words, they have too many bras, and when they do bra, the foods aren't really balanced, and there are probably some good ways to actually balance your bra that you can make it more healthy and more effective from a general health and wellness perspective.
Because of course, one of the two of the key sort of players there are large quantities of red meat and alcohol. But how much really is too much of those things?
Yeah. So red meat, yeah, absolutely. So it's red meat and alcohol. So we know those are the key big issues at a braai. And of course, if we were braaiing middies or vegetables or potatoes, sweet potatoes, we wouldn't. And I'll talk a bit about that later, how one can balance that.
Mm,
But the key issue is we need to look at the red meat and the alcohol. Both in themselves are very dangerous when taken in large quantities. So once again, I want to say in moderation, small amounts, occasional bra with an occasional beer is fine.
mm,
But if you go into the excessive braais, and I'm going to start with alcohol, the overconsumption of alcohol is significant. And I think we know that in the South African population, we do counter that, and that leads
definitely.
to many other issues as well, side issues, which we won't get on today with. But today we're just talking about your health. And alcohol in moderation is fine, which you're talking about one beer or one whiskey, etc. But when it starts accumulating, then it actually starts getting very dangerous, and it starts affecting many organs. Alcohol. So obviously, you can divide alcohol damage in the acute and chronic phases. So
Mm,
acutely, alcohol can be very dangerous just at the time. Obviously, if you're braaiing and then you having the alcohol, and then you're going to go drink, right?
yeah.
Then you're going to go drive, and you're going to be drinking and driving, or it can cause unwanted sort of relationships and issues. We know about that. So the acute and intoxication. An acute over amount of alcohol can also cause you
Mm,
to go obviously into liver failure or kidney failure acutely.
mm,
Then there's the chronic damage of alcohol, which actually builds up over a period of time. And there you talk about actually your vessel disease. So it actually starts affecting the vessels in your body, both in your heart and your brain, and kidneys and multiple other organs as well, and actually can start significantly causing damage. So we know long-term alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver,
mm,
renal failure that it can start progressing to. It can affect your brain. It can affect, and then it starts affecting your arteries. And one of the effects, what it also does is it actually increases your blood pressure.
oh,
And I'm going to talk about that maybe when we go into other foods as well. But it can significantly start increasing your blood pressure, and that is really the pressure that the blood is pumped around the body, which in turn causes damaging of your heart and your brain, which then can lead on to chronic heart disease, heart attacks,
mm.
uh, brain strokes, kidney disease, heart failure, etc.
That's quite a scary and very long list of symptoms. And I think for South Africans, we do We do like a drink. And it is something that we just have to be cognizant of, especially with, as you're explaining about blood pressure. Blood pressure, having so many different effects on different parts of the body. And even if it is not necessarily a small, moderate amount of alcohol, but just the effects of the next day,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily always take into account just how much that affects one's productivity and quality of life. If you spend the morning feeling dehydrated and shaky, then that's a waste of a day. But in terms of the other risks associated, things like your high cholesterol and other factors, as well as blood pressure.
So the key issue, what happens with alcohol, is that then you start combining it with red meat, which we spoke about. So we're going to talk about sort of the synergistic effects. It's not just one effect. So you're having this alcohol on many occasions with many braais, which actually causes significant bodily damage. And then what you add onto it is the meat. So now red meat, as we know, is very high in bad cholesterol, and I'll talk a bit about the cholesterol now. And that starts building up in the body. Now, cholesterol in itself starts damaging your organs, right? The brain, the kidney, the liver. And what it also does is that what cholesterol does in its bad form, and I'm going to talk about the different forms now, it starts clogging the arteries. So it starts building up in the arteries. And therefore, the heart struggles really to pump the blood around the body. So if you picture it, you've got a large blood vessel. If you start holding up cholesterol, then essentially the lumen, the diameter that the blood can flow through, narrows over a period of time because your cholesterol builds around the artery, and if your heart struggles to pump that blood around, right? And this is the buildup of the cholesterol from the red meat. That actually then increases the blood pressure, because blood pressure is really the pressure that your heart has to pump your blood around the body. And therefore, it's not only high blood pressure as it's trying to push the blood through the vessels, but that actually reaches your end organs, like your brain, like your liver, like your kidneys, and also starts ballooning vessels because of the pressure that we cause aneurysms. So it causes significant damage to the vessels. And then you can imagine, then you take your alcohol that you've been drinking, which, as I've said, causes end organ damage, together with high blood pressure and cholesterol. And really, one is setting himself up for significant chronic disease, if not sudden disease. For example, a sudden heart attack, a sudden stroke, etc. Now, I do just want to say, just before we go, not all cholesterol is bad. So we get what's called HDL and LDL. High density cholesterol, let's call it, and low density cholesterol. Now, high density cholesterol, that's actually good cholesterol, right? And that will all break down your bad cholesterol, and it's used as building blocks in the body. But the high density cholesterol comes from what we can say is more healthier, lean types of food. And then you get your low density cholesterol, which is really your bad cholesterol. And that's really found in foods like red meat, beer, alcohol, and that's really the bad cholesterol that clogs the artery. So one really has to look. One just has cholesterol. Yes, you should divide it up. Good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Bad cholesterol is coming from the red meat and the alcohol as well.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because I think most of us do just go, oh, if it's full of cholesterol, it's bad. But the fact that there is a difference is quite important because, as you said, that HDL cholesterol, the better cholesterol, can actually help break down the worse cholesterol. But what are some of the ways in which we can actually actually manage the situation? So obviously, we're all scared to death to have a braai, but we would like to be able to have a better braai. I mean, that's the whole topic. So how do we make it better?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of ways that one can look to make it better. And I think the way to structure this is, firstly, I don't think one should be having a braai every night, right? So really, and that really goes to a deeper point, is that one shouldn't be having alcohol or red meat every night.
Yeah.
So in terms of the quantity, the number of braais, one should decrease that. And yes, we have a braai day maybe once a month or twice a month, etc. But when you're going into a couple of times a week, that starts getting significant.
Yeah.
And that's something to deal with. And as I said, with the braai comes alcohol. Then it's what we put on the braai, right? And what we braai. So first, we must look at quantities, right?
Yeah.
And we should just try and limit those quantities down. Sorry, having a bit of a barking episode in adjacent to my office here. It must mean my dogs must be excited that I'm talking about a braai.
Very Pavlovian.
But yeah, so we need to limit the. Sorry, if you'll just excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to close the door.
No problem. It's, of course, this is what happens when we have beloved pets, especially ones that happen to know what the word braai means. And we all know that the average dog does definitely know what the word braai means. So,
whenever I'm doing a braai, whenever I'm doing a braai, the participants that are there from the beginning to the end of the dogs, right?
Thought as much.
If you ever not know, just to make a little joke, if you never know what to do with your bit of extra meat, rather than you become the dustbin and eat it and get it, and give it to the dogs, I'm sure they will be actually very happy. And in fact, their bodies can break it down better, etc. And they're more adapted to actually eat lots more meat. But the point being is, so what we should do with our braai is that so we should see a balance what we're doing. So limit the quantities. And then when you braai, it doesn't always have to be a red meat. So you can look at fish. Fish is a great thing to braai. Very healthy, high in essential oils and nutrients and minerals and vitamins, etc. And chicken. And some people say, well, they don't. Chicken doesn't work on a braai, etc. But it actually works very nicely on a braai.
Oh yeah, nice.
Classified red meat, and obviously it can come out very nicely. And then if you are going to go the meat, let's say, then you should go to the lean meat.
Yeah.
So a meat that's actually got very limited fat. Don't go for the fatty chops or the fatty ribs, etc. And maybe just go to, when you buy it, just make sure that you're actually getting lean meat. Because boerewors is very fatty as well, and we love boerewors. Should be limited. So limit your quantity. One piece of meat. Make sure it's lean, limited fat, and then, as I said, what one should also do is then also the braais, and it's a grateful mechanism. Bring on the vegetables. Put corn mealies, as we refer to. Put that on the braai. That's delicious. You can put potatoes, onions, a whole bunch of vegetables, ready to balance out the meal, and that will also balance out the excessive and the red meats.
Especially because then it contributes to managing that portion size that you're talking about. So if the portion size that makes you full is, say, the size of 2 hands together, if you end up substituting some of that with a lovely sweet potato and some zucchini or some other vegetable that goes on a braai, then you end up having a little bit less of the red meat, and you make up that portion size with actual vegetables. And it's very interesting. And of course, no, sorry, please go ahead. I was going to just say that, of course, Eskom is having a field day with the load shedding. So a lot of people are braaiing more often just because it's a nice electricity-free way to actually get some hot supper on the table.
Correct. It is an easy way to get it on, but there's a lot of healthier choice options that we can look to braai. So as I said, the lean meat, the fish, the chicken that we said. And then just our general choice of low, we should be choosing, and just to make a general point, we should be choosing low-fat foods to eat, right? And that's just a general point in how we go about our diets, right? And not be going for all the high fat products. So, for example, when you go for the milk, you should be doing the low-fat milk, in fact, fat-free milk. And actually, we even know that which become a big, very popular and a craze around the world, and it's coming to South Africa as well. Your soya milks or your almond milks, and you get flavored, etc. Those are very much healthier to have than your full cream milks, for example, healthier. So low-fat dairy. Choose proteins that are potentially more healthy, like eggs, right, which are high in minerals, etc., and have less saturated fat. And then one can have lots of fruits as well. Fruits, and that's when we come to the dessert. Don't go for the full cream ice creams, etc., but go maybe for the more
sorbet and yogurts and
etc. And balance it out. That have much less of the LDL. And then also just general comment, and I know veganism is becoming quite a big craze. And we know people that's about, and I'm not suggesting one should just change from having braai to becoming a vegan, but certainly whole grains and breads that are whole grain breads, etc., not your processed white flour breads, etc., also very healthy, and one can obviously start a braai and put that out as well.
Well, especially because I think a lot of us assume that if it's a salad, it must be a good thing. But of course, we put creamy dressings and things on them, and that generally goes and completely interferes with the whole point of having a salad. So, but I think for a lot of South Africans, the idea of now having to cut out or cut down at least on red meat and drinking and things like that. It's like, well, what else do we eat? And there are options. You're definitely not going to starve if you cut out red meat 3 or 4 days a week. So there are.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of options out there, and one should. And this also goes to a point. One shouldn't just say, and this is great. And I hope this program has been started thinking about it. Okay, the next time I'm going to do a braai, let me try balance it. Let me just put a bit more healthier food on the braai. Let's maybe have a bit less alcohol. Let's have some salads. Let's put some vegetables in, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But the point of a webinar like this is just to get you thinking, right? And saying,
absolutely.
And then one, and I'd hope listeners will go do their own research and start inquiring. They're amazing recipes. They're on the internet in terms of low-fat, much healthier meals to put in the braai that one can do, and choices that one can make to make it very interesting, very tastier, but a lot more healthier. And I really need to emphasize this, is that we have a very, very unhealthy society in South Africa. High cholesterol, high diabetes, alcohol being prevalent, as we've said, and that's really diet. It's all diet related. And really, we need to make the active decision to become healthier people. And healthy people is starting with what we eat and what we put in our bodies. And that actually, it's an educational process that starts with this, but one should actually start doing one's work around that.
Of course, and especially because meat becoming more and more expensive, and with the cost of living climbing exponentially, there are not only healthier but also actually less expensive options that will allow you to save money. So it's not just good for your internal health, it's also good for the health of your wallet and pockets. So there are so many benefits to being able to understand the different alternatives and different options that you have in terms of what you're going to eat, and being healthy in terms of choosing your higher fiber options, choosing your lower fat dairy, and if you're going to eat meat, your leaner cuts or your white meat. It's so important, because also your red meat and alcohol, of course, is also expensive. So you're cutting out not something that's not only unhealthy for you in unnecessary quantities, but something that's also not necessarily the greatest way of spending your budget. And I think every South African is on a budget by now.
Yes, 100% correct. And in general, you're spot on with that. And I think creating a healthier wallet, good meats, etc., are getting expensive, and alcohol is expensive as well. But I do just need to put in a cautionary note here. You do get, because if you move on to the fast food realm, there's some very unhealthy meals that are very cheap, that are sold by fast food outlets, which we won't name. And often people prefer to go there than their local fruit store, or buy a fruit or whatever it is for lunch or supper. And it's not necessarily so they may be forced, okay, they still want meat, so they're just going to go for a cheap option like a polony, a processed meat. A lot of fast food out there, it's terrible. It's not only is it high fat, and just a whole bunch of additives that just make it such an unhealthy and unhealthy for your body. So sorry, excuse me, one needs to be very careful about that. So one, if you're going to eat meat, eat healthy, lean cuts. Make sure it's the original meat that's coming from whichever animal it did. It's not processed. And if you choose then not to eat meat and you can't go for that, then don't go, and there's a very important point, don't go for cheap alternatives, because those cheap alternatives are very unhealthy. Rather go for the natural foods that you can know where the source comes. So a general good principle with healthy eating, when you're going to eat something, if you can identify where that came from. Okay, a chop may be difficult to identify where it came from, but you would know. But the further it looks from what it actually started off as. In other words, a lean chop is much healthier than a piece of bologna, and you can see that because it's hard to identify where it came from. And the same goes for a processed flour versus unprocessed flour. So the closer it looks to the source, the healthier it is. And that's the principle one needs to apply. And that's what you take onto your braai as well. And try and just put healthier, natural, identifiable foods into your braai.
And that's so important, because I think so many of us do fall prey to the overly refined foods because they are so much cheaper and they are so much easier. And especially if one's going to be home late from work, one's been stuck in traffic for 3 hours, you get back, it's dark. Now there's no power. What are you going to do? You're going to walk up to the unnamed fast food chain around the corner and you're going to get some really unhealthy meal. And it's becoming very
not only
easy.
that, often a lot tastier, right? It's often a taste. Yeah, some of us can be brilliant braais and put it on, but often a fast food food is going to be tastier than a dry piece of dried out meat that we put on the braai. So often it's a lot tastier. But tastier is not necessarily healthier, and that's what one needs to remember as well. But also, as we said when we started, like moderation. Moderation. If you go the other extreme, then you'll just eating will be a terrible experience. And that's not what we're trying to achieve here. But we're trying to achieve a healthy balance of when you do braai, of the number of times you braai, and when you do braai, just choose healthier choices.
Well, exactly. And I think this is why it does become a little bit difficult, is because choosing healthy choices involves not just making those choices, but learning what goes into making those choices. And one of the things that we've definitely identified this evening is the fact that one does have to actually put in a little bit of effort. And if you're going to be buying, or if you're going to be cooking food, that make sure that you're finding reasonable quality meat. So if you're going to buy meat, make sure that it is the lean cut, that it's a better quality, and you can recognize where it came from. And then going for the unprocessed, unrefined ingredients, and the thing is that obviously those will take a little bit longer to cook and they'll take a little bit more effort. But rather than going to the takeaway, spend the time and, if possible, cook at home and learn about how to make food taste better. And obviously not everybody's a natural born cook. It's like we don't all graduate matric with chef school, but it is just something that comes with practice, and it has become probably its own epidemic in a way, where we just find it so much easier to just, we'll stop at
X and Y food store. We live in a society that's very self gratification and instantaneous gratification, I should say. So general people, unless it's Sunday, you got lots of time, etc. You don't want to sit around for hours cooking your food, and so you just go and buy that healthy option around the corner. And what we're saying is that, well, educate yourself and make a healthy option. And the same goes with your braai day. Just educate yourself and make choices about what you're going to be putting on your braai. And remember also, it's not only about you, it's your family and friends that are coming around the braai. So if you're serving them unhealthy, fatty food, that's also going into their bodies. You never put, and I always say this to people, and we talk about it in healthcare and medicine, you would never go to your car and put into the engine of your car like I don't know, strange mixture of liquids that wouldn't make the car work properly. So, and we know what needs to go in. So the same thing should be your body. You know what I mean? Why are you going to do it? Why are you going to put something in your body that actually doesn't allow it to work properly? Okay, yes, there is the taste, but there's a lot of tasty, healthy foods, and there are ways to do it. So educate yourself and make good, healthy choices.
Absolutely. And I think that is probably the most important thing that we can really start with in terms of a foundation for what we can do for, as we said, a better braai day, but also just for the rest of our days, is to ensure that if we're going to make choices, that we make the small choices. And that's not a huge step. That's something that actually can very easily be done. It may sound scary because it's different to what we normally do, but the thing is that it can be your new normal. It can be something that you do regularly, and that adds up to an infinitely better quality of life. Because at the end of the day, things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol cause a lot of very serious heart and health problems. And health problems themselves not only get expensive, but also will really make you, they completely and utterly interfere with your quality of life and quite often cut it short. So,
so these are diseases that you're not going to be able to reverse. They're going to have a
yeah.
significant impact on the longevity of your life.
Mm.
So the choice really is in your hands. And it's such a great point that you brought up a few minutes ago when you were chatting, is that change is not about, well, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be totally different. It's about making a change in small bite-sized chunks, excuse the pun, but you've got to do it slowly, right? Slowly. So, the next time make one change, etc. And that's the way to change. It's not going to, don't make big things you're never going to keep to them, or big resolutions. Make changes in small steps that you can actually manage, and then in a year's time you'll see, okay, well, your braai looks totally different. Take a picture of your braai now and take a picture in a year's time. Hopefully it will be looking different, and then your body should be looking a lot healthier. That's what we're trying to.
We've got a question from Robeko Matendra, who says, how often should one drink or braai? Sorry, I joined a bit late.
So I struggle to pronounce our questioner's name, Kobeka.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for the question, and really appreciate all the questions coming in. There's no rule, right? There's no rule. So I mean, once again, if you did healthier braais, I would say, okay, well then, if you're going to do a healthier braai, then do it a lot more often. If you're going to put lean meat and vegetables, if you're going to do a healthier braai, less. But I would suggest probably you shouldn't braai if you're going to do the unhealthy red meat option with alcohol. It shouldn't be more than once or twice a month. I wouldn't go more than that. Because that's a significant amount of alcohol in red food and something that's unhealthy. But there's no rules here. And as we were saying with Caitlin, it's about changing it. So if you're braaiing every night of the week, then cut it down to half the week, and slowly try. But targeting probably once or twice a month, I think, is probably a healthy way to end up.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good estimate in terms of the amount of time as well that it takes to set up a braai and things like that. Is that if you're going to be spending time outside with friends and family, rather make it a healthier experience, and don't rely on, it is difficult at the moment with load shedding, but don't rely on braaiing a lot of red meat to get you through the week because there's no electricity to cook.
Plan ahead.
Definitely.
The other thing, you can cook without electricity. And plan ahead, and don't leave it down to bringing out those unhealthy foods onto the braai.
Exactly. Or skipping around the corner to the unnamed fast food chains.
Yes, exactly right.
So, Doc, thank you so much. I can see that you're joining us from the dark.
Yes, I am, and I'm just seeing it's getting darker and darker. I thought I'd had some light here, so I do apologize, and I'm going to just go switch on my braai now.
A very healthy braai, I'm sure.
Yes, of course, we've got our millies and corn and sweet potatoes and all those healthy.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, but absolutely, but it's an absolute pleasure. Just to emphasize once again to our listeners, it's really, really important. Think about it, educate yourself. You are really responsible for your own body, and you've got to decide what you're going to be put in your body, and whether you're going to be a healthy person or an unhealthy person. The outlook is yours. Yes, there may be a few things you don't look, but where's your main principle? Do you want to be a healthy person or unhealthy person? Make that decision. You want to be a healthy person, and then start educating yourself. And in terms of what you eat, and watch what you're putting on those braais.
Do you have any parting recommendations as to the best place for people to educate themselves on like trustworthy information? Because the internet's full of all sorts of things.
Yeah. So all I would suggest is the following. So you can go to dietitian Google, and we'll have a lot. There's a lot of stuff. But I would generally say, like if you go to a site of what you should be eating, it should be written by someone who's qualified in that. So either a healthcare professional who's written it, not just maybe a cook or someone or a chef or something, but make sure that it's written by someone who's actually well educated in the field, be it a dietitian, doctor, specializing in wellness, etc., etc. And just make sure, and that goes with anything you read, but make sure for health and wellness, before you read the article, go to the end of the article and say who actually wrote this article, where they're from, is it worthwhile and read it, right? Don't read it and then at the end, okay, because that will then be imprinted on your mind. But make sure who's
thank you so much. That's fantastic
Sure.
advice. It's all been fantastic advice. So we
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to say thank you again to Dr. Avron Urison for joining us today and for telling us in the best possible way how to have better Braai days. So thank you,
Thanks,
Doc.
everyone, and enjoy Braai. Absolute pleasure. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the webinar now. Have a lovely evening.
Cheers.